While we are conducting town business using remote participation via Zoom, we ask that those of you not recognized by the chair or otherwise engaged in the discussion of the moment to please mute your microphone to avoid interruptions outside the conversation. Thank you. The select board meetings can be viewed by going into the cable videos icon on the homepage of the town's website.
All right. Obviously, we have only one item, so to speak, or four, depending on how you want to do the math. But our only goal here tonight is to finalize the town warrant and what we are putting on that. To that end, we have four warrant articles that we did not approve from the other night. So those are the four outstanding. And Kevin, I'm not sure where we want to start or if you have a plan on how to approach, but I defer to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good evening, everybody. First, thank you to Lauren and Matt for joining us tonight from KP Law. They are the engine behind many of the things that we do, especially at town meeting. And we have really good service with both them and the remaining of their team at KP. Being responsive and thoughtful and supporting our efforts. And now that we are close to the finish line and we're going to print in the next 48 hours, and this is our last meeting prior to that, Monday we had some questions, specific procedural questions that we received from the select board around in this scenario, what happens in that scenario. So we thought it would be really useful to have our legal team here to kind of answer those specific questions ahead of time and flesh those out. In addition to that, there's a modified Article 3 that was just distributed through Sam to the board that I'd like to have KP maybe walk through, and I can give a little overview of why that's been updated. But before we get into those two items, I thought that it might be useful because I know there was 3 articles which were held back on a vote from Monday night outside of Article 3 that possibly maybe we could start there because I believe there should be direct answers to the outstanding questions or resolutions to the why it was still held till tonight. So if that's all right with the board and with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to maybe move those now. And the first being Article 5. That's the Masconomic article. That was, my understanding was not voted. I had to leave early, obviously, for the Finance Committee meeting, but my understanding is that was not voted. So I don't know if there's any outstanding questions regarding Article 5. There were edits made, as you see on the version 6.2, I believe, shows the modifications from the last meeting, which were provided. And I will note that in the description of that article, there will be the word estimated will be included in the last line, talking about the increase on your tax bill, as well as the decimal after the decimal point of the dollar amount will go away. So it'll be $107, not $107.37, I think is the number.
It's basically the language that we discussed at the last meeting. We're just making sure it gets incorporated.
So does anyone have any other concerns about Article 5?
I have none.
I don't even remember why we didn't vote this one through the other night. So,
I think
no.
it was merely because we were talking about 2 schools and override ones, and so we wanted to just make sure that we were fine with both. So, I mean, we can, I tell you what, why don't we look at the next 2? And then if we're good with the 3 that are in Article 3, then we can just have a single motion on them and then tackle Article 3.
Marshall, could I just ask one question before we go on? So, because there was a lot of talk around it. So with KP here, just a final look-see, the amount that we had in Article 5 for the gross operating budget of Masconomic, we had is 39,757,686. That is the amount minus the amount that's in Article 33. So technically, the proposed gross operating budget is 40 million and change. It's the 39 plus the other. So is this a truthful statement, or do we have to refer to Article 33rd and say if this and Article 33rd are passed, that is the total assessment for the town?
So that's a good question. Always you have good questions, Lynn. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to wait to respond, I of course will be recognized before I go on.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay, thank you. So the issue that I had was that Matt and I discussed is that you aren't approving the entire budget if there's going to be a portion that's subject to an override. And so that is approval of the district budget, believe it or not, is appropriating the full amount of the assessment that's been given to the town. If we appropriate less than that, or we appropriate a portion of it contingent on an override, it's the equivalent of a rejection until the voters at the election vote on it.
Right. So is it misleading that by our saying if we appropriate the base plus the override of 246, et cetera, is it misleading that sentence? It's, let's see, who the three towns must appropriate the full amount of their town's assessment for the proposed gross operating budget of 39, blah, 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 to be approved. Is that incorrect, though? Should that say two of the three towns must appropriate the full amount of their assessment for the gross operating budget of 40 million, blah, 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 to be approved?
I mean, I think the answer to that is yes. It's the full amount of the assessment that we're talking about. And so perhaps in the explanation, we just want to put in a line that said, that says, Article 34th, is part of the annual assessment. And, if action is taken approving that, then we'll have approved the budget. Yeah, that kind of thing. All right.
Yeah.
You want me to try and draft that up, Kevin?
I mean, the other board members feel, okay about that, but I just want to make sure that if Masco looks at this, they'll say our proposed gross budget is not 39, it's 40 and change. So you should at least make that statement. It's not like that 40 million ties back into the previous discussion. It would have to be in two different areas. But it should just be accurate. That's what their proposed gross budget is.
Does that change the amount of the override?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Well, I guess my question would be is that if we have the 39,757, 686, that is the operating, that's their operating expenses, general operating budget. The remaining amount's the debt service expense, capital costs, including debt service. If we word in the description that the district fiscal 24 proposed gross operating budget, or as it's worded on the Masco sheet, that would just be the one of the two pieces of it. It wouldn't be the entire certified budget, but it would be accurate in the wording of what that is. And then if there was a piece in there that stipulates that Article 34, 31, 34, that is part of their certified budget, to Ms. Goldberg's point, then I don't know if we have to change the 39,757 is, I guess, my point. I think if it's worded with that as the operating piece, and that we're just the other part later on. I don't know if that's accurate or if that's less not helpful.
199,000 is debt service. So it's part of their operating.
But it's the debt service that they have in here is one-time spend for the turf fields, which we are allocating for free, one-time spend out of free cash. So
But it's not a debt service. It's, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not taking out any debt. They're asking the towns
that's
to
right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
pay it. So it's not debt.
If we issue though, because we talked about this earlier, we had a call with Matt and Lauren, but if the town accepts Article 5 with the 39,757, and then in the later article for the turf field accepts that, their budget's been fully met. The funds have been allocated.
Yes.
If the turf field does not pass in 2 of the 3 communities, but this number, the 39,757 passes, the schools will ultimately have to make a decision whether to recertify their budget less that piece of it, the turf field piece. And so
Yes.
if we,
Sorry.
Well-
I was just gonna say, I guess my question for you, my vice chair is, are you comfortable with the 39,757 and then a clarifying line in the explanation?
Well, I wouldn't call the 39 the proposed gross operating budget because it's not. I'd call it by another name and refer to Article 34, that if that is passed, then the proposed gross operating budget has been covered. This is just misleading because that's not their proposed gross operating budget.
If I may,
Please.
so it's actually unusual for towns to get these amounts separately or to vote on them separately. Usually they vote the entire school budget at one time. So I do agree that we can clarify by just saying if town meeting and then the election approve this and we approve articles, whatever, the complete assessment will have been funded or something like that.
Yeah, the complete assessment of the 40 million would have been.
Yeah. Yep.
Just
So we get the number there.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So this is a change then ultimately to the explanation part, right? Not the motion?
Yes.
It's in the motion as well.
The terminology gross operating budget?
Yep, of 39,757 is in the motion,
Okay.
so.
They actually, I just looked, I knew this information came from somewhere. They said gross operating budget, and then in parentheses, they said minus debt. So we could do that. We could do just what they did.
Yeah, it's weird because it's not debt. But if that's what the school said, then as long as we're mirroring what they certified, I'm fine. But it's weird though, because when you get to 34, to call that debt and then just say we're just asking the taxpayers to pay for it, it's kind of confusing too. But you're saying that's what the school said, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out which page so I can send it to you guys.
You know, I trust that knowing all this, and Lauren, if you feel you understand, like you want to make it be in sync with the schools and it's just some tweaking on the words, we could let you run with that so that we're sure our number matches what they certified somehow.
Yeah, so they say total expenditures. They say general operating expenses before offsets, less expense offsets, general operating expenses after offsets, and then debt service expense. So that's the way that they've titled these different buckets.
And are they calling the turf field debt service expense specifically, or are they just saying we do have debt service expense?
Let's see. Well, I promise you, I'll figure it out. I'll use the exact words that they use. I'm having a problem managing to search this because it's not it's not a PDF. I mean, it is a PDF.
Vice Chair, I think that specifically the 131, the value, the cost for Topsfield turf field, it is not debt. Obviously, it's a capital expenditure that they're looking for. And when asked, why it was located where it was, the explanation provided was there wasn't a line item that really fit to put that in, and so they by default put it into the debt, although it's not obviously debt. So it's very misleading.
Kevin, I wonder if what their position is that it's a capital item and we only pay debt on capital items, so that it is in the appropriate line for their budget, even though we're not talking about borrowing.
Can we call it capital then, if they know it's capital and it's, or is that, it seems more understandable to people, a capital expenditure, it's one time, it's not debt, but as long as it adds up so that the gross budget is 40 and we refer to the other article, I leave it in your hands,
Okay.
I would be comfortable.
I mean,
Having you-
ultimately, Lynn, it's a transparency issue, right? You want to make sure that we're being transparent in Article 5 and not say 39 up here and then down here say, oh, actually, there's a little bit more.
Right, and if anyone from ASCO looks at it, they'll go, yeah, that's the amount that we certified. So that we're all in sync and people are not like, why is that number different? Or, yeah.
Is there any reason why it's separated so much? Why can't you move it up to include it either before or after the Article 5?
The turf field, Mr. Whalen?
Yeah. The amount that you're thinking is the debt service. In other words, you're worried about appropriating not enough money. But if it comes before, it will have already taken place and you can just do the budget as it is.
Personally, I think, Steve, the reason they broke it out is it's a very different, it's one time, it's not operating, it's not an ongoing expense. And it's the precursor to a very large figure, $7.8 million. So they wanted it discussed amongst the town as opposed to being buried in just Article 5.
But I think the question is, why don't we move that article up to Article 4?
I understand that. I was just explaining why we broke it out. He said, why do you don't usually break it out? So I was trying to explain the breakout. But yes, Raphael, you could move it, I suppose, unless there's any reason why water always has to be number 4.
It does the same thing, whether it's later in the warrant or one after the next, correct? It's still, it doesn't change the vote of the certified budget. It's just, it's broken out, and obviously it's spaced out. And the reason it was spaced out is there's multiple reasons, but one of them is that it's generally the first articles we have, Article 3 is a budget, Article 4 is a budget, Article 5 is a budget, Article 6 a budget, and then we get into the consent agenda items, and then we get into the capital items. And this being a free cash allocation for a one-time capital spend, it felt more appropriate to be with those other items. And throughout the warrant, it also is next to the later Masco item where they have the housekeeping language for capital and how their capital assessments are calculated prior to this article. So it's a Masco back to back later in the document.
Can I make a suggestion maybe?
Go ahead.
What if you put the words after Article 1st, what if you put the words budget articles? So then it's clear. That's why those are there. And then you have consent, and then you'd move into the capital.
So one other point I'll make too is that we've been in constant communication, the town administrators and the 2 other communities. We've spoke with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the school committee members in each of the communities about the structure of how this warrant article is being structured. We've been transparent with them for a number of months, and they've been updated along the way. There hasn't been any direct concern that's been provided to me. I don't know if anyone else might have heard any from any of those stakeholders, but I know that the 2 other communities are placing their turf fields in the exact same fashion outside of Article 5 in their versions of wherever that's located, their base budget. So it's structurally the same, and that's very purposeful.
And I would suggest that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to share, the chair of the FinCom just texted me and said, if you call it capital, all 3 towns have to approve capital expenditures. So that changes the 2 out of 3. So I guess we can't call it capital. And he said, reminder, if base number changes, we don't have a valid FinCom recommendation anymore. So he will speak if you need him to, the base number changing. I don't know if I guess they did vote on the number that's in here, which is the 39 million. I guess they voted on that number. So
So-
they would have to revote.
Yeah, and with all of that in mind, in terms of reordering and renumbering, and as long as we are comfortable, adjusting the explanation so people are clear, and we can even do it, on the floor during town meeting, I would caution against us suddenly moving things around and renumbering things, and, we go to print in whatever, Friday morning.
Right.
So it's a little late in the game, I think, to make changes unless they're vital to make sure we're doing the right thing. And this doesn't sound like a vital one.
As long as,
Except again, the
Bill's got-
explanation component, I have no problem with. Like, if that's what we're talking about, just transparency and explanation and reference to a later thing, all of that is not a huge change. I would say if we're changing other things, that becomes a much bigger deal.
yeah, as long as KP feels like us calling this gross operating budget of 39 is accurate when they approved a gross operating budget of 40 million and change, I'll let it go.
Mr. Chair, I think we could just add something that says, as characterized by the district or something like
Yep.
that, to make it clear why that number is what it is. And then, we'll be consistent in terms of what we're saying.
Okay.
The other thing is there's nothing on the, in the bylaws about the order of consideration of articles, but typically, it is, let's see. Suspension of the rules, maybe 2/3 vote, but I'll confirm that for you.
Okay. I'm not really worried about it coming so much later, as long as we, people know that it's coming up later, which
Mhm.
again, we can do in the explanation. Mr. Moderator can do it with a quick note that, this is the operating budget, but there's a capital expenditure or whatever we're calling it later on. I mean, there are any number of ways that we can be transparent about it.
We'll know we'll have a quorum.
Yep. We know that.
I
All
was
right,
thinking that too.
if people are comfortable moving on from Mathco for now, and again, we'll come back and vote on it in a bit. What's the next one?
So just crystal clarity on this. So Ms. Goldberg will add those few words for clarification purposes as last discussed for purposes of 5, just so when the vote comes up as the 3 come up together,
Yeah.
that'll be the action item there. The next is the ambulance article, which is Article 18.
Yeah, and I believe our
All right.
only question on
15.
this was capital or ambulance.
So this
Yeah,
was voted
we'll talk
motion
about it.
as presented using capital stabilization on Monday by the FinCom. And with a later article, you'll see there's an additional 200,000 above guidelines of replenishment of free cash into the capital stabilization to offset the monies that will be going towards the ambulance and in this article. So I believe that was when I was there for the meeting on Monday, we were just waiting for confirmation on finance committees, if there's any last concerns on the way the monies would be appropriated, and there were not.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
FinCom was comfortable using capital instead of the ambulance fund, then I won't second guess.
Okay.
Comfortable.
I don't think your idea was a terrible one though, Lynn, to be
No,
honest.
I think we all agree that common sense would figure that the ambulance stabilization fund would be used to purchase a new ambulance. Like, that's clearly what it sounds like should happen, but I too will put my faith in all of the people who have their fingers in this pot and that tell us that this method makes sense.
And I think the last one that was of 3 of the 4 that were not voted, the last one before we get to Article 3, I believe was Article 31st, and that was the housekeeping bylaw.
Okay.
Madam Vice, I don't know if I think that you had some specifics that you sent over to me that I passed along to KP. And I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was outside the language of this particular document, but it was the additional document 16-10 and some questions you had around including it as then a strike through in the final document that we put on file with the clerk's office.
Right, so 16-10 was the Public Works Committee that existed when we had the three commissions, so that all three departments were talking to each other. But now that they all report up in Kevin, it doesn't make sense to have a committee. We don't have a public safety committee or a, public health committee. They just report up to Kevin. So it seemed extraneous to me. And so it seemed like it was antiquated and it should just come out. And so that's what I had, Kevin and I had earlier talked about it. And then we got focusing on a number of other things. And then I realized 1610 wasn't in there. And then I called him to just say, what was the thinking on that one, not including it?
And I know, Matt, I've had a number of conversations on that as well. And, personally, from an operational perspective, I am fine either way. If there's, and I know, Matt, I don't know if you have any thoughts, the other perspective on it in that we talked through, but my position as the operator, either way, we can have it. We'll still be able to do what we do with it. It's just the preference of the board.
Yeah, and so quickly, the thinking there was simply that those superintendents still exist, of those department heads. So we didn't remove that commission because it wasn't essential when the passage of the special act alone didn't do that. From an operational standpoint, if you would like to get rid of that commission, absolutely, you can do that here and go for it. That's more of a policy choice for you all, how you want to organize the town. But literally read that commission could still exist with the reorganization that took place. So we left it in place. But it's up to you if you want to remove the Public Works Commission.
So Kevin, there are no costs associated with this housekeeping?
No, I think the from an operational standpoint, we're in constant communication with our superintendents and the members of that board. No cost associated with whether we do it through a formal committee or if we do it just ad hoc, which is in some sense how we're doing it now.
Okay, thanks.
It seemed odd to have a committee report to Kevin of his own people.
Well, and if I may, there's also, when it's a committee that's established by the bylaws, all the posting and minutes and all of that is required. Whereas if it's not a committee, then it's just an employment, type of exchange rather than a discussion about policy for these departments that are actually under the stewardship of the town administrator.
That's a great point, Lauren. And Cam, to your question, then that would involve cost because now we need someone to do the minutes. So you talk a couple $1,000s a year to schedule these meetings, post them, attend so that they can get the minutes, do the minutes. It just seems like extra work and it's just happening anyway, naturally they report in.
If it's the will of the board, we can certainly update the document containing the recommendations.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe that would be appropriate, Lauren. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone disagree?
No.
All right. So we will do that. All right. So is there anything more on Articles 5, 18, or 31, subject to the changes we just discussed? So with that,
Wait, Lauren has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're very small on my screen.
I don't know why. Mr. Chair, I did look up the quantum of vote to change the order of articles just so that we're clear on that. And basically it says if a reasonable person would support the reason for changing the order of the articles, that's a majority vote. If the moderator believes that it's to essentially jockeying for a position or trying to get something accomplished, to the detriment of someone else, then it's a 2/3 vote. So that would be up to the moderator to make it a call about whether it's a 2/3 or majority vote.
Matt, you can go ahead. Or is that just a thumbs up? It looks like a hands up.
It was just a noise in the background. I apologize.
You've got one of these on your little corner there. So basically that's the question. If on town meeting day, somebody said, wait, I want to do article whatever sooner, that would be a matter of a motion on the floor and a decision by the moderator?
Well, the moderator probably could move it on his own, but it's more typically the case that it's moved by town meeting by a vote of town meeting.
Okay. All right.
Because the select board already made a choice about the order.
Yep.
So to change that is usually a vote of the town. So select board's warrant after all.
All right, very good.
Not that I want to stir up trouble with the order, because I'm fine with it the way it is. The only thing I'll throw out there is that the people who are attending the meeting, this is going to be a long meeting. The people who are attending early on to vote in the budgets for the school are going to be there at the beginning. That's Article 5 they're talking about. They have to hang around and wait until Article 34th to make sure their entire budget is approved.
Which I, by the way, am perfectly content with, because of course I believe that any member of the town who's going to attend town meetings should be there and interested in attending from Article 1 through Article however many there are. So
I just don't want it to look like we have pushed it to Article 34 when there are not going to be many people there, or people are going to lose heart or energy, and it's two pieces of their budget.
All right. I mean, I understand that, but I think we can be transparent that that's not the way or why we did it. But I would be loath to, and not that you were suggesting this, Lynn, but I would be loath to move it up so people can leave after Article whatever, and then we risk losing quorum. So I'm not interested in doing that. I'm only one man though, so who knows what other people would be interested in. All of that said, I'll circle back to, are we good with 5, 8, and 18 and 31 at this point?
It's 15, by the way.
What did I say? It's ambulance is 15. I thought
15, yeah.
Okay, I have it as 18, but
Just one question, as long as we have KP here. I think, Matt, you had put some comments in to Article 31 or off to the side, some question about something about the water commission coming up under Kevin and some wording, and you had several comments over there. Just if you could clarify what you were talking about and whether you were looking for something to be done this meeting or just something we should keep on the radar for later.
you're muted.
Yes. So there was previously a hearing process for approval of betterments that went before the water commissioners. We discussed that with Kevin and kicked it around a little bit, and that's going to go to the select board now, to the extent that it comes up. That's all contained in section 245-6. It involves a petition or a determination from the water superintendent, and then to the extent a hearing is ever necessary, it would go to the select board.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, I didn't know in reading this, who is now the cemetery commissioner?
It's the Park and Cemetery Commissioner under the Special Act. Those departments were combined into one Park and Cemetery department, and now it's the Park and Cemetery. I think it's called the super, technically, but the head of the department.
The superintendent is the commission. Is it one person?
Yes, there's no cemetery commission anymore.
I thought by state law, it was required that we have a cemetery commission.
Well, the special act is notwithstanding any general or special law. So I believe there's a general law that you're referring to, but the special act can supersede that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm good with the motion on these three.
Motion to approve Articles 5th, 15th, and 31st.
Pending discuss changes or something like that, edits.
Yes, actually, thank you for Article 5th, pending changes from KP.
Okay. We're not, it's not really pending, it's accepting, whatever it is, but
Accepting.
yeah.
Incorporating changes from.
There we go. That's a good word.
There you go.
Pending
That's fair.
would mean that our vote didn't take effect until the language changed. All right. Having found agreement on that, I'll be happy to take a second.
Be a second.
All right. Is there any discussion on these? Hearing none, we can move to roll call vote. Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Ms. Bermudez,
Aye.
and Mr. Hook is an aye. So that brings us down to Article 3rd. Now, Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, if I may. The last time we talked on Monday, we had the former motion and then we had a new motion. And there has been extensive discussion, both, I think, by us, by the FinCom, by residents, by emails that we've gotten, by the town moderator, that there was a desire to have this as two separate articles, that being the school budget and the override as two separate articles. Historically, budget articles have all been in one place, and both Kevin and Lauren and Matt are all at the ready to correct me if I say something wrong. And that is why that they have been kept in their varying versions in one article. I think we all agreed that at some level it was confusing and we didn't really, it was not always clear what was going on. And I personally wanted to make sure that we, the board showed intent to do, put the override on the warrant as been asked us. So you all should be in receipt of a latest version of Article 3 that has a Part A and a Part B, which
Where?
Wait.
we
I'll
worked on.
press Mr. McDonald.
Yeah.
This is
And when I
exciting.
say we, I mean, I was there as people talked about it and said I was confused. So that was my role in working this out. So it is still a single article, but there are now two separate motions, a motion A for the base budget, a motion B for the override, which I think, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think fulfills the general desire to have this be two separate votes while also sticking with the historical precedent of keeping it in one article. And
Can
with
you
that,
do that?
I will stop talking. Well, we have two lawyers here who say we can. So
Well, first of all, Marshall, do we have that? You said we're in receipt of it. When did that
Sam
date
sent
be-
it by email. I think it's what we would call in the media industry hot off the presses.
like
At
right
6:04
now?
PM, 6:04.
Yeah, so if you check your email, you should find it.
So if I could add just a couple of small historical points to over the last few months and in sort of how we got to Mr. Hook's reasoning for what we're doing now and what we're proposing as an alternate language. 2019 was a positive action by the Finance Committee, recommendation to endorse the override in 2019 with the elementary schools. 2015, Masconomic as well. And the override, because it was positive action, was built into the budget article, right? So it's the budget article, and that's where it is, and that's where it lays. And it was pretty clean and easy because it was the motion was positive. Until last night, when it was voted 3-4, not in favor of the override by the Finance Committee, we did not know for certain if it was going to be keeping the language the same as it always has, because we'd see positive action and consistency with it. And so with that, and reading some of the tea leaves in the week prior and talking with the chair of the Finance Committee and others, Ms. Goldberg and provided some language on Friday that gave us an option B to distinguish it within that same article. Now, again, not knowing how the FinCom was going to land and if we were going to need it. And so when the Finance Committee last night did not vote it, that became the plug and play. But there has, the way it was is we did hear feedback, as Mr. Hook said, that, is there a way to make it a little more definitive? I explained on Monday, as long as there's good explanation around, if you vote this way, it means this, and if you vote this way, it means that. Hopefully people would be able to understand that. And we would make a hard marketing blitz to the community to make sure they have the tools they need ahead of town meeting, with the goal of not a single person coming confused to the meeting of how they want to vote. They'll know, if you want this is what you do. That said, we did have, now that we have a definition from the FinCom, we had a great conversation earlier today with KP and our representatives here. And what is in front of you because timelines are short, right? We're going to press, in 24 hours. Just a big thank you first for putting the language together, Lauren and Matt. And then second, it does, as Mr. Chairman said, it hopefully gives more definition. And I think ultimately it does the same thing as 2 articles. It's 2 votes. And I think that's the clarity that people have been asking. What I heard on Monday from the select board, and what we've heard from others as well. So I have not read it. Full disclosure, I have not had the chance. I was on the phone with a couple of other people leading right up to the meeting, but I don't know if Ms. Goldberg, if you want to maybe walk through,
Yeah.
might be helpful.
Yes, I'd be happy to. I want to start first by saying there's no one way to do an override. The way that it was proposed is legal. Doing it in 2 articles is legal, but it's more common to have it in the same article for lots of reasons, including that when you're talking about the base budget, you're very much likely to talk about the override budget. The 2 relate to each other. So I think the way that I understood the discussion earlier is that it would be better if we separated out the votes on these 2 issues. And so it is legal to have 2 motions under a single article if they're reasonably distinct. And we can all agree they're reasonably distinct. One of the concerns is that if the budget itself was rejected, the base budget, you would have no budget and you'd have to come back to a special town meeting in order to have a budget before July 1, which would also cost money. So the way it's written is motion A is the base budget and motion B is the FinCom's recommendation on the contingency budget. So as you can see, A is pretty standard. B is, kind of what we'd see in a normal article if the committee didn't recommend passage. So after listening to the conversation, I did think we could change some of the explanation to make it very clear what's going to happen. And as the town administrator said, obviously we want people to be able to know what they're voting for. So we explain it's going to be in 2 parts. And then motion A is described. It approves the operating budget for the town. You raise and appropriate the sum of 22 million within the levy limit, which I know was an important point for general purposes and the elementary schools. All is set forth in the column labeled, and for my life, I couldn't remember what the name was of that column, but whatever it is, we will add it in. The transfers, as you know, under Article 2nd, also fund a portion of the fiscal year 2024 operating budget. So I left that in as well. So that was kind of straightforward. Does anyone have questions about that, Mr. Chair? Should we check?
Yeah, no, as always, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
I don't have questions. We've looked at so many iterations of this, and this one is the most informative. It's got the greatest clarity, and it truly accomplishes our collective need for transparency on this. I think it's very well written and clear.
Lauren, should we be including in that description a $100,000 overlay surplus that is an offset as well? We mentioned the 120, 178.
Is that, yes, that's not from Article 2nd, the overlay surplus transfer?
No.
No, Ms. Goldberg, I think I'll send you the latest version because the last meeting we added in the surplus. So you might not have had that for the purpose of that. And the numbers, for reference purposes, the final numbers were voted on late Monday night. So those numbers will update. So I'll send that information to you as well.
So yeah, so we can definitely address that. We'll just make a minor change so that that's clear.
Okay, and maybe if we could just have a minute to read it, because with all the talking, I haven't had a chance to actually read it. Lauren, if you want to describe B, and then maybe we could.
Mr. Chair, I was going to say maybe it makes sense to go through B. So since that's kind of the more involved part.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the goal in B was to make clear exactly what's going to happen at town meeting and what way people will need to vote to either take positive action on the contingency budget, on the override, or to reject the override. So, I mean, reject the override at the start. So essentially, we have that contingency budget in attachment A, and it's labeled contingency budget, which is very helpful. Where the first motion on the floor at town meeting is the finance committee's recommendation. In order to take positive action, town meeting will need to vote down the finance committee's recommendation. And then I explain it a little more. And after that, if that occurs, then a positive main motion would need to be made to approve the contingency budget and subject to an override. And it could be amended like any other motion could be amended. So it's subject to amendment, but it would be possible at that point. And then I tried to clarify that if the contingency budget appearing in attachment A is approved by town meeting and then the voters, then this average tax bill change will occur.
I just asked a numbers question. I've seen a couple of numbers. Is this the accurate number? 1.1790996?
No, those are the draft that Ms. Goldberg was working off of was not from Monday night when everything was solidified by the finance committee. So that I'm sending an email right now to KP that has all the latest language that can be incorporated into the language provided today.
And I apologize about that, but the numbers are for you guys to confirm. So Matt and I won't take ownership of those.
And if I could, one other quick point I wanted to make, if it's all right, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that, there's a lot of tradition in Topsfield, consistency is important so people aren't confused. And with regards to, there might be the question, especially with two overrides on this warrant, why are we doing something different in Article 3 for an override than we are in Article 5 for an override? Or why are we doing something different this year than we did in 2019 with an override? And in my mind, personally, the justification is in all those instances historically, and the other override this year, there is favorable action for that override. And so by dividing this out, we're in some sense creating something of a precedent, but I think that the realist in me says, okay, there's a justification of why we're doing different in this article, because we always said from the beginning, we wanted to have the articles, they didn't have to be exactly the same, but similarities so people weren't confused. Why are we working on an override and wording it this way and having a school override over here and wording it that way? So I put that out there as we were talking through two motions in one article. That's some of the justification that we worked on.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I've got a few questions. The first one is very much rhetorical, but why did we not do this 2 or 3 weeks ago? I feel like that would have saved us so much time and effort and confusion. I think lesson learned going forward, something of this size, we definitely want to look at these options. Second one, I know you said the final numbers aren't there, but these numbers don't add up even. So we just definitely need to keep an eye on those very carefully. And even the one the one we were looking at before, I was very confused as to how the $100,000 versus the $100,000 comes in. So that's still a little bit iffy to me how the math works on that. And I know you said they're not final, so I guess we'll just leave that right there. I think we do need to see a final write-up before we can vote on it, though. Next question, just to make sure I get it right, reading it as it is, a yes vote on motion B would reject the override and a no vote would accept it.
No.
No.
Yes.
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 And the no vote would not accept the override. It would allow a positive main motion to be made. So a yes vote rejects it entirely. A no vote would mean that town meeting could vote on it, assuming that someone made a motion for those purposes.
I see. So a yes vote shuts down the override.
Yep.
A no
And a
vote
no
does
vote-
not allow it to pass, but it allows there to be a path forward.
Yes.
Okay.
So to be clear, those in favor of the override would want to vote no on B and then be prepared for someone to make a new motion for consideration.
They're on notice.
Yes.
And then my last question is, does FinCom have to revote on this, and what does that do for timing, et cetera?
They do not, because their vote of no action on the override is reflected in B.
Okay.
We actually voted separate votes for the base budget and the override.
Yeah.
So they're covered. We're covered. This is good.
Okay.
The modified language we used as the placeholder until we found out the vote last night, which then they ended up voting that second, the one in the margin, did essence what we're doing here. It just didn't clearly. It was one vote at town meeting. For the FinCom, they broke it out into two, which allows us to not have to have another meeting because we don't have the timeline.
This AB article better reflects what FinCom actually voted on ultimately. So.
And better reflects what we've been asking for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, then I have no other questions as long as we can see. I guess we would need a new attach. No, well,
What is it that you want to see before you vote on it?
the numbers add up.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah,
may.
go ahead.
I understand that you guys are going to print on Friday and there really isn't time to schedule another meeting. I wonder if it would be acceptable to approve this, provided that, you know, you are sent the numbers and, you know, they would appear in that same format, because I don't think there's time. And I would hate for you guys to be delayed by, you know, what essentially for the town administrator will be a ministerial revision.
Well, that will be,
Yeah.
I am comfortable with that. And I
I've
assume that's what we were doing, but it's a question for the rest of the board.
I got total faith in Lauren and Kevin to handle the numbers and get it right.
Lauren
We
already said she's
actually-
not doing the numbers. That's all on Kevin.
Guys, we
Well,
actually have the
obviously.
numbers.
Oh,
The numbers
okay.
are up in board docs. They're already in there.
The numbers that
Article 3rd.
They changed from last night when they didn't change from last night when FinCom voted.
no, Mondays was the last version. So the numbers that were provided in the last version are the right and accurate numbers. The ones I sent earlier today. Those numbers will be reflective in the new language that's provided or was provided with modifications incorporating that, obviously. So
Okay. I'll feel more comfortable if we can walk through those numbers then, knowing that the language is different. And I apologize to my select board, my other members who were probably bored to tears with my obsession with numbers.
It's fine. I have no problem. If we can pause on walking through the numbers for just a second. Because
Fine by me.
before we move to walking through the numbers, I want to make sure we're comfortable with this new format and language.
Yes.
Could I ask one
I've got
question?
it.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I
I've
was
got,
just gonna say-
I've got,
All right, hold on one second. Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
I've got a question about about motion B in general. Nowhere in this process, which I think is the right process, and I believe with Raphael that we should have done it a week or two ago. But the fact of the matter is, I have an issue with it because nowhere in the process does it tell where the selectmen reside in this override issue. And I think that that's what motion B ought to be about. I think that motion B ought to describe where the selectmen's position is on this motion B, and down at the bottom line say the finance committee recommends no action.
The motion is the recommendation from FinCom, not the select board.
Select board members, the opportunity to speak to that will come when motion B, well, probably during motion A, because there will be a discussion about the override, I'm sure. But again, the select board could present its position, and I believe the moderator will recognize you before other members of the public. So there will be a time to get that out there in a effective way.
Well, but Lauren, it'll only come up if if the question forces it to come up.
Well, I mean, I think practically we know that this is going to be, it's going to come up. I mean, there's no way it doesn't. So, I get what you're saying. Honestly, now that in this version of this motion, I think we have fulfilled what we in a previous, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, non-official vote said that we would do, which was to put on the entire amount of the override for consideration of the town. This motion now does that, and it includes the FinCom's recommendation of no action on it. So we've done what we said we would do, which is we've put the whole amount on there. We've not split it. We've not said we're not going to put it on there. It's on there, subject to the town vote. The FinCom did what the FinCom did, voted, no action on it or recommendation of no action. That's on there now too. So the individual jobs and, the number was reached by the school committee. So if you take those three bodies, the select board, the school committee, and the FinCom, everyone is reflected in the motion as it currently sits. And now it's up to the town to vote as they see fit. And obviously, as Lauren points out, in the framework of town meeting, we all have the right, and not all just select board, literally any member of town who shows up has the right to be heard. So that chance will be there.
Yeah, the select board's vote is our voting on whether the article appears as it is here. If we didn't want it to be on there, we'd say, take off motion B, any description of motion B, and just do the base budget. So
Yeah.
we are speaking by putting it on the warrant. Just a question logistically, Lauren. If people don't understand, there'll be a lot of people there, and not everyone's going to be on this call to know procedurally. Of course, Mr. Whalen will explain it, but if motion B is contingency budget not recommended, what if someone jumps in and says, I'd like to amend that?
The tradition for you all has been in place as long as I've been coming to town meeting, and that is that the FinCom's motion is the first motion on the floor. So in order to have positive action, if the FinCom has recommended negative action, you have to vote down the FinCom's recommendation and then have a positive main motion. So I believe, and obviously the moderator can make his own decision, but I believe he would find that to be out of order.
Okay, great. So we must vote on the FinCom's recommendation first.
Yes.
All right. Is everyone comfortable with the language portion of the new Article 3?
I actually haven't read it.
Okay.
Yes.
A couple
Mr.
minutes.
Chair.
Give Elaine a couple minutes. Silence.
Mr. Chair,
Silence. So I can
would
read it.
someone allow me to share my screen, because I want to show you the language that while we've been talking, I realize there's a couple things that we could do better with. So I've tried to do that, and I'm happy to explain it.
I presume
need
Sam is here to let you share your screen.
She said yes.
She was on mute, but she's,
In the other room, she said yes.
Where are you, Cam?
I am in the veterans office across the hall from
Across
young
the hall.
Sam, who I just heard yell, yes, I will do it.
Ms. Goldberg, I just inserted the numbers in the contingency budget, which I think is the word you were looking for. I'm going to send this over in an email right now, so you have it as well.
Okay.
Is it what's labeled in contingency budget, or motion A
conti-
should be
Sorry,
what's
contingency
labeled in approved appropriation?
It's the contingency appropriation column is the actual term, and that's what's we've broken out in attachment A as the standalone area for where the override lies within attachment A.
No, but that would be in base budget.
Exactly. Motion A should be the base budget.
It is.
So it shouldn't be contingency.
It's not.
Yes, exactly.
It's not contingent. There's no contingency right now in any of the motions. Instead, the base budget is a positive recommendation to approve the budget, the base budget, and B just says the contingency budget isn't recommended. If we were to vote down that recommendation, and then someone makes a motion to approve the contingency budget. We'll then be talking about the language for the motion, which we're happy to provide in just in case. And then we'd be debating whether to approve that contingency budget. But contingent on an override.
But I
Lauren,
think
you
my-
should be able to.
Approved appropriation. My apologies. Contingency
Yes.
is the.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm moving pretty quick to try to get the language for you, Mr. McDonald, so I missed that. Yeah, I know, I'm moving.
All right,
I
Lauren.
think Marshall's head's about to explode with all the numbers talk.
Listen, I'm comfortable with numbers. I'm more of a language guy, but obviously when we're talking about budget, it really comes down to the numbers, so.
Well,
Like,
maybe Kevin, you
Raphael-
want to show the numbers, and then I can show the few changes I made in the budget, in the article, the motion.
Well, we were still talking about language, so I
Oh.
feel like let's get the language portion out of the way. And then we can do a run through on the numbers.
All right, tell me what you see.
Yep, there
There
we
you
go.
go.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I changed where it says motion A. I wrote base budget as set forth in attachment A. And then for B, contingency budget as set forth in attachment A, just to be clear that people know where to look. So that was one thing. I also realized that although we told people how to vote down the FinCom's recommendation, we didn't tell them how to approve the FinCom's recommendation. So I added a line, a voter who wants to reject the override would vote yes on the Finance Committee's motion of no action. In order to take positive action on the override, town meeting will need to first vote down the Finance Committee's recommendation. We say exactly what to do. Thereafter, a positive main motion would need to be made and the rest. So I think it's a little more balanced in terms of what the voters need to know when they're voting on this negative main motion.
And I am content to just take a moment and let people read through the whole thing, if that's. what they
Certainly.
need to do. If we had Jeopardy music, we could play it.
How everyone is in their head.
Can
Everyone
we
is
actually
still
see it in
talking. Everyone has to
simple
be
markup?
quiet.
Could we see it in simple markup while we read it?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Now you're asking me to move,
Just
thing- I
accept
did it, okay. So no markup,
Yeah, or
Or-
simple?
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, now everyone be quiet. When people are good, you can let us know.
Almost there.
Good.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm ready to.
Okay.
Do you want comments?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I would say the first sentence, I would just shift it so that it's reading the same way for motion A as it is for motion B. So it says this article will be voted on in two parts. The Finance Committee base budget recommendation under motion A and the Finance Committee's recommendation on the contingencies budget. So could we say it the same way? That's, it'll be voted in two parts. Finance Committee's recommendation on the base budget and in motion A, and the Finance Committee's recommendation on the contingency budget under motion B. See what I'm saying?
And you want to say on the base budget here?
On the base budget under motion A, and the recommendation on the contingency budget under motion B. Okay, and then
Sorry, just
If
on
you-
that, we need to capitalize base and budget, right? And contingency and budget, just because we did up above. Thank you.
okay, then down the next paragraph is what we talked about, Lauren, above. See where it says to transfer the sum of 100,000 from overlay surplus?
Yes.
Go in there.
You want that capitalized or no?
However we do it above, I
the
think
end of the
we capitalized
explanation,
overlay surplus
change
above
the
in the
words
motion.
Okay.
Approved by voters of the town to approved by voters at ballot.
Kevin, what did you call that? Was it approved appropriations?
Yeah, it's the column that is approved appropriation.
Sorry, what was that again?
Approved appropriation. That's the
Okay.
column that has the base budget in it.
No. Oh, well, okay, maybe. I think we were talking about the second paragraph down in the italics.
Well,
The
both,
third
both also in that paragraph under motion A.
It's on the
Okay.
fourth line of motion A, and then it's on the third line of motion A in the description.
Perfect.
Why don't we say this? Yep.
I have a comment when you're ready.
All right. Well, when Lynn is
We have
done
to
with,
put in approved appropriations right there as well.
Yeah.
In this second paragraph.
We'll do spell check, I promise.
You're doing fine.
We can get rid of that. All right, I made them match, Lynn, so that they are consistent.
Okay, we have just there's a typo in here. So the transfer is proposed under Article 2nd in the amount of 120 and a transfer of from overlay surplus.
Yep, sorry, I was just trying to make those match.
Sure,
I apologize.
no problem. That looks good. Boyd, did you have something?
Yes, I did make a comment and maybe request a change. Since I am in disagreement with the FinCom recommendation, I'd like to make it clear who is recommending no action. And at the end of, right where it's bold type motion B, at the end of that line, where it says not recommended, period, I'd like to say not recommended by the Finance Committee.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are comfortable with that, I'm happy to.
I mean, I think it's clear if you read all this stuff anyway, but there might be a lot of people that doesn't understand that.
Well, then we'd have to change all the other recommendeds, because in every other motion, we say recommended. We don't say recommended by the Finance Committee.
I think the exact language is recommended. Bear with me for 1 second. We had it for the turf fields, just from a consistency standpoint. Mind you, the turf fields are now recommend positive action. I just declare to be on the record with that.
Sorry,
says
say that
recommend-
again.
The FinCom initially recommended that the town take no action. That's the line that we've used historically. And that the Monday's meeting was changed to a revote and changed to the Finance Committee recommends positive action.
Interesting.
Well, we don't have to add my line if you guys are comfortable the way it is. I don't want to create a lot of additional work and a lot of extra changes. So if we're running out of time here, and if everybody's happy with the way it stands right now, let it go.
I'm okay with it, Boyd. It is a lot of, it would get a little clunky throughout the rest of it if we had to change all the recommendations.
We're not going to go through all of them.
Yeah, my preference is for consistency.
And ultimately, again, anyone who stands up at town meeting or frankly before town meeting can make clear where they stand. So.
Lauren, there's just a double period in the 1 to 3rd paragraph, second line from the bottom, or third line from the bottom. After override, there's 2 periods.
Yes. Wow. I need you guys like on retainer and just help me edit. I like it.
And then the only thing that I would add is what we had done before for Article 3rd, and we had talked about, is that we changed the wording from the average tax bill will increase by an additional $498.51. Since we don't know what the actual tax bill is going to be until the rates are finalized, later. So we changed the wording to the average tax bill is estimated to increase by an additional $499 beginning next year. And does it say that in Article 3rd as well? I know we didn't. Oh wait, we are in 3rd.
Fifth,
Sorry.
you mean in 5th?
We are in 3rd.
Yeah, no, we changed it in 5th. We changed it in 5th.
We did change. Okay, the average tax bill is estimated. Okay, as long as the wordings are the same. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say, right now, this does not say estimated in Article 5th. It says will.
We said it would be a change later.
Oh, we did? Okay, sorry.
Please take
Whether
note,
it happens or not.
Yeah, we can go back to 5 after this, just to make sure they're worded the same.
Are there
And
any
then-
other questions or comments on language for Article 3rd?
My only thing is, do we need something in the italicized portion of motion A saying that if you vote for motion A, then or if the town approves motion A, we do not get to motion B? Is that clear enough?
That's not true.
That's
Motion
not
A
true.
is separate from motion B.
We're going to do both.
I
No
thought,
matter what, we do both.
That's why there are 2 motions.
No,
Motion A base budget, motion B override.
we said, but the conversation earlier, then I thought I was on the right page. Then
No,
maybe
so
I'm
what
not.
happens, if I may, and then again, everyone can jump in and correct me. Town meeting, let's go ahead and pretend you're in the role of somebody who wants the override, right? So motion A comes up to vote, everyone votes in favor of that because that funds everything but the override. We now
Yes.
move to motion B. Motion B, as currently constituted, rejects the override. So then we
Yes.
take a vote on
Okay.
motion B. Again, if you're a person who supports the override, we reject motion B. A new motion B is made. to approve the override, and then that becomes up for vote.
Yes, thank you. I'm clear on it now. Thank you.
Would-
Marshall, I'm
um,
I'm assuming that Steve, the moderator, is going to make this clear repeatedly about this, because he'll probably need to, and I know how he talks, and he probably will emphasize this a couple times, but I mean, he is prepared to make sure everyone understands, yeah?
He's
Not
done this
only do I-
before.
Am I
Yeah.
sure that he is prepared, but I am relatively sure that there are going to be plenty of people well before town meeting, including ourselves, doing the job of educating people how this all works.
Yep.
Is it okay to plug in the numbers now? Just so we have a.
Well, I
Sure.
just want to make sure everyone's good on language.
Gotcha.
Sounds like we are. So yeah, let's do a review of the numbers now.
So, Ms. Goldberg, on where you are now with the cursor, the top first number and highlight, that should be 23,553,502.
Oops.
Oh, yeah, and that matches column D. Excellent.
Right now, I think we have a budget of like $2 billion. So
Fat
that's
finger
right.
mistakes.
Brutal override.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Yeah, just, you'll come along and shoot me at some point. All right.
We're throwing a
250.
lot at Lauren here awfully fast, so.
that's all right.
So
It's
it's 22?
23.
23.
23.
553,
Comma.
502. Yep, commas in between.
No, you don't have it yet. Close. You're getting close, Lauren.
What is going on?
If
22.
you want to delete my note, that might make it easier for you.
We might. Let's see what
I
happens.
think you got it.
Okay. Do it again.
All right, 23, 55, comma, 553, comma, 502.
Oh, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it.
And I've got some FinCom members in the town
And
account.
you
on
need
the
an
call.
F in front of 4 again, because in all of that, you got rid of the F.
Oh, of course. That's why I have you guys working.
I'll send you my bill, don't you worry.
And then the next highlighted piece there, that number is going to be 23, comma, 433, comma, 324.
That's because of the 120,000 out of Article 2.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And
Okay,
then-
let me just ask a quick question then, because you said 120, but the number right above it in the line before says 100 from overlay surplus.
Overlay
Right, the
sur-
overlay number's not in there. That was
It-
my question.
It is, 100,000 is the overlay surplus. We're not mentioning the 120,000 that was in Article 2nd. It just says it was transferred under Article
Okay,
2nd. So if
okay.
you want to put in the 120 to
Yes.
clarify.
All right.
Well, it's 120 and change. It's not 120.
I'll
But
highlight.
what I
it.
don't understand is why is the difference between the two highlighted numbers not the sum of 100,000 and 120,000 and change? Is the 100,000 already been taken out of the 23,553?
No, I'm sorry, Raphael, you're correct. It should be 23,333.
Thank you.
324.
Match cell D325 in the attachment A. Thank you,
Catherine,
Catherine.
it's not 120 that was transferred. What's the exact number, if you don't mind?
120178.
That's correct.
Okay, 178.
Now I'm happy.
Everything feels right in the world.
It does. It does.
I think they even add up correctly.
Okay, so now we just have to do the description, change the 22,715, or is that the right number?
Yep, so that number down in motion A will change to 23.
Three, 324.
Yes.
553, 502.
That's not what we're raising and assessing, are we? Or that's back up to the,
You're taking that's for the total gross, the total not with the less.
Yeah, that's motion A.
Yeah.
Hey, could you guys give some clarity to the 120178 in this explanation?
Yeah, so in Article 2, there's certain items that come back into the budget to offset our costs.
Yeah.
Those are the budget transfers.
Yeah.
And that includes Conservation Commission from their fees, because we cover their salaries in the budget. We get 15,000 this year to offset that. We have the 3 items that offset our costs for the outsourcing of the cemetery, which is money from the cemetery revolving account, money from the cemetery perpetual care fund, and cemetery sale of lots fund. And then lastly, we receive funding out of our cable PEG fund to offset our cable PEG expenses annually.
So why is that one number in there? And sorry, I don't mean to be thick, but why are we referencing one number here in this section of 12178 and not the other two?
The other one's there, right afterwards.
We have the 120, the
Didn't you just say
100,000.
three? Didn't you say, I'm sorry, didn't you say 3 numbers?
The detail is in Article 2.
So you're just transferring from Article 2. I think, does this say that I don't have my glasses with me, so I'm trying to read on the
There's
iPad.
Article 2. There's the 120, 178, Cam. That got transferred in, so we don't have to raise
Article
it.
2.
I see. Thank you.
Someone appears, excuse me, to be waiting in the waiting room.
Is Sam here?
Well, Lauren is now in charge. You can let them in, whoever they
Okay.
may be.
I didn't
And
want to
Mr.
overstep my authority here.
No, we are-
And Mr. Gand is either cheering us on or had his hand up. Oh, looks like he was cheering us on. Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so does that answer your question on the 120, 178?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, so now we just need to change the number that the school is asking for.
So and the reason for what it typically reads, just to go back to that 120, 178, that's included in the motion itself. What we typically do is we reference Article 2. We don't put the dollar amount to it, but
Okay,
Okay.
I don't know if Lauren, I don't know if that matters or not, but that's why the language that's now being inserted in there is a little different, but I think it still does the same thing, but just for consistency's sake, I wanted to point that out.
yes. The concern is that we don't want it to appropriate those amounts twice. But I do think if we say, in addition to the amount of 120 transferred for such purposes under Article 2, it's clear that we're just referencing it. And it will make the math work. And I think, given the complexities of all this, that probably is a good idea.
Honestly, 3 years ago when I first read the first warrant, I was scratching my head a little bit because it wasn't referenced in there. So I'm fine with it as long as the board is.
Because this one adds up. So if people are doing the math, they're going to add 23, 333,
Yeah.
120, and 100, and they're going to get to the 23, 553.
It's
They
just
do
the
add up.
Key thing discussion is about.
all right, so now we just need to adjust the numbers in the description. Is that what we have left here?
For the school number, yeah.
First
So
line of motion B italicized.
So that number will be from the 1170996. It's now 1 million.
I'm sorry, where is
Oh,
it?
sorry, motion B. Sorry, under the italicized motion B. Right there. Yep. 1,139,926.
Can I ask, just for my own personal information, so we're appropriating the sum of 23,533,502. Well, I guess we're raising it, not all by taxation, but that total amount.
Catherine Gabriel has
Yeah,
her
I
hand.
was going to say, Catherine, go ahead.
Lauren, I was just going to hit on that same idea. I think that in the italicized, that number that's highlighted, wouldn't that be 23,333,324 as the raise and appropriate amount?
Well, it'd be the amount that would be raised from taxation would be the 23,333,324. But the total approval of motion A is
Yeah.
the 553,502.
So to
Even
me,
though it's saying raising and appropriate the sum of 23,553. Okay,
However,
All right.
That does it.
That do it?
I think
Yes.
that fixes it.
That does it.
Article
More
second,
information is always good.
is it Article second versus Article 2?
Oh, yes, it certainly is. You think
someone
I would have
explain to me
learned in
why we
20
do
years.
that.
Just because it's New England.
Lauren, you think Lynn spends a number of hours going over this stuff?
I'm
Just
Just saw
telling you,
it
it's
now, Dwight.
fantastic.
You saw me reading it. I read it before your eyes.
Nothing but respect.
All right. Are we good on the numbers at this point then?
Do we just need to, since we just put in that language that Lauren just put in, do we need to do that last sentence? Is that redundant? Or
Mean way down at the bottom?
in that motion A, so
Oh,
we
okay.
say it approves, blah, 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 raising and appropriating by taxation and transfers from Article 2nd in the overlay surplus, the total sum of 23, blah, blah, blah. And then we say again, the transfers proposed under Article 2nd, the amount of 120 and the transfer of overlay will find, is that redundant now? It's like we just said that. We could put from Article 2nd in the amount of 120, 178 and overlay surplus of 100,000 up in that first sentence. It seems like we're repeating ourselves maybe.
Yep. Yep, I see what you're saying. You're making me do so many numbers. You must know Matt's like crying right now that it's taking me so long. Okay. 120. Oops. 178.
Second. Article 2nd in the amount of 120. Let's see, Article 2nd, the amount of 120 and the overlay surplus and a transfer. Let's see. Transfer from overlay surplus of 100,000 for the total sum of. It's weird though, because is that within the town's levy limit?
It is.
It is, okay.
So then we don't need,
Then we don't need the last sentence.
if you wanted to though, to make the point about reducing the total amount, we could say the transfers, the reference transfers reduce the amount required to be raised by taxation.
Yeah, I like that without having to repeat the numbers and the categories.
Mm-hmm.
Just one other point. I did get confirmation. The liaison to the Article 3 of the warrant article, is willing and will express any sentiment from the select board if it's so desired at town meeting.
Oops, you don't need that.
Mr. Hardman on the finance committee mentioned, it did say that if the select board would like any select board opinion on the override articulate, he'll do so when he goes to the mic to explain the article.
We'll be in touch, Mr. Harkin.
We need that comment after Article 2nd. Transfers proposed under Article 2nd and from overlay surplus will fund a portion. And thereby reduce the total. That looks good.
All right, is everyone comfortable with where we stand at this point?
I think so.
Aye.
In that case, I would be fully willing to hear a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
could
yes,
I
please.
request that the form be approved and that any typos may be corrected? I just want to make sure that if we find something later, I should say if Lynn finds something later, that we can fix it.
Lauren, I can tell you,
When?
I can assure you she's gonna be looking.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I'm heading for a cocktail after this, so I'm not, I'm not gonna be editing.
I mean, honestly, I don't think our motions ever would preclude fixing a typo. So
Okay,
I think we're fine with that. So with that said, I'm happy to entertain.
Come on, Lynn,
said
bring it
motion.
home, Lynn. You got this.
Bring it home, Lynn.
Is this our last one? Only
Yeah.
3? It's
This
okay.
is it.
Motion to approve Article 3 as written
I think we all
and
second
possibly
that.
edited by KP for any minor edits found.
Cam is the one who spoke, so I will take his second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will move to roll call vote. Mr. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Bermudez,
Aye.
and I am an aye. Article 3 is on the warrant. The override is on the warrant. The warrant is set. I don't know what else we have to do. Do you want to stop sharing your screen, Lauren?
I do. I definitely do.
That was a legitimate question, not so much a request. I figured you would, in fact, want to stop sharing your screen.
Did we do the modifications to Article 5 for the estimated tax?
Kevin, did we have those?
I don't believe I've received those yet, but I haven't looked in my inbox. And if they
No,
haven't,
I mean, it,
The
No,
word
it's just,
estimated.
just the language at the
Nearer.
end, removing the theoretical exact amount and turning it to the same thing we did at the end of Article 3. I know we talked about it on
We
Monday.
did. It was adding estimated.
Yeah,
yes, estimated. Yes, sorry. So those are the two things on both Article 3 and 5 that Madam Vice Chair and I actually spoke about right before the meeting. When I sent it out this afternoon, those are 2 items I didn't catch on Monday, but I subsequently found after I sent it out, those have been updated. You actually, if you notice in Article 3, Ms. Goldberg actually had the 499 as the estimated number and it had estimated in there. Article 5 will reflect that as well in the final version.
and then Article 31 will include 16-10 and strikeout.
With regard to that, will the finance committee meet in the band room meet in the teachers lounge for a new vote? Because 1610 wasn't included in what they voted on.
Yeah, let's see if they can.
Bear with me for 1 second.
Oh, is Kay on?
There were some members here.
No, he's not here.
now Che is the phone number at the bottom, I believe. Che, if you're still the phone number at the bottom, feel free to contribute.
Mike Cartman's here.
Yeah, Chase said he's here.
Yep.
Or he answered yes, so. Or maybe it was a yes to they can meet. Let me double check. If they can to revote.
Any
Chase
of
it.
Mr. Hartman or Che is welcome to unmute themselves.
Oh, yeah, Chase said you need to unmute me.
Oh, okay.
Is that me?
I guess
that's
if you can
fine.
unmute that phone number at the bottom. I thought you could only request that they unmute. That's the way I remember it working on.
Yeah, you can ask them to unmute.
Yeah.
Which I believe I did.
Yep, he's
Hi
unmuted.
guys, all right, now now you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we plan, when you guys were talking about 1610 on that, on 31, I figured we'd just revote it formally at, when we all meet just before the meeting. So it'll just dot the I and cross the T. Does that make sense?
Yep.
sounds good.
Okay.
But I one last thing, and I'm not sure now whether it was 3 or 5 or probably both. there was wording in there that approved by voters of the town. Could we change that to approved by voters at the ballot? So that people understand where, because there's going to be two groups of people approving. Oh, you're on mute, Lauren, if you were trying to say something.
Kevin has the latest draft. I sent it over. I'm not going to make any more changes, but he will.
I'll do it.
Kevin's got the master.
Madam Vice Chair, that's at the end of the explanation, correct?
I think so. I'm forgetting now where I saw it.
Yeah, it's in the override stuff. Probably in 5.
Yeah, let me see.
Approval
That
at
it's
an
such
election.
override passed at the election. That's in the motion, and then
Was it 3? No, 3's not up here. It might be 3 because we just wrote it, and then I don't have it in front of me.
let me pull up what I just got from Mr. Goldberg.
Yes, I see it. It's in the motion B description.
Okay.
And then approved by the voters at the election or at the annual election.
Town meeting question. Seeking voter approval of override. Approved by the voters of the
At the
town.
ballot, at the election,
Voters of town at annual town election.
Yep.
Sure.
Kevin, when you have a chance, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
At the very end of our warrant, there is a question 1 with some dollar figures and question 2 with dollar figures. We need to make sure that they're correct.
Good point.
I updated that in the last version. Do you see a discrepancy?
No, I don't know, but we've juggled a bunch of numbers around here, and I just wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with the numbers that are there right now.
They match.
Yep. Give me 1 second. I'll pull up the last version.
1139926.
And 246921.
Yep. They're clean?
I think they are. I believe so.
Okay.
Catherine, yell at me if I said anything wrong, please.
I honestly didn't have a chance to look at attachment A. Does everyone feel comfortable with A? Because we voted in the warrant and that is part of the warrant.
I like it. It's in Excel.
Yeah.
Numbers all look good, Raphael. If you say they
I
are,
haven't gone through to check that they're all the numbers that we had discussed and everything before. It's too many there to do. I trust Kevin has though, or
So
Catherine.
that will leave me with, again, asking the question,
Where's your dollar?
Is everyone comfortable to go?
Oh,
Here.
So the article attachment A, it comes directly from the final budget on Monday night that was approved by the Finance Committee. And those numbers were both prepared and then verified by the combination of Catherine and myself.
can you just say, Kevin, where the contingency budget that we've been talking about is located in here?
If you go to the elementary school line item, which I think is page 3,
Page 3.
it's down next to the subtotal of the elementary school. The elementary education line item.
cell E163.
Is there a reason it doesn't say, contingency or override, that it's not detailed?
It's just a number hanging out in column E.
Or there without a description? Yeah.
The column is actually labeled, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is
It
it-
ties back to the warrant article. That's the best
I
way.
guess I'm not seeing that. I'm over it as far as I can go and I don't see any.
Right, because if you scroll down all the way to see that number, you can no longer see the column headings. You need to freeze the cells on row 10 or 11, and then you'll be able to see it.
Okay,
Contingency appropriation at the header. Okay, got it.
okay. You know, it just strikes me that it would be nice to see contingency appropriation down beside that number too. Because by the time people go to, oh wait, does it carry, does the title carry on all pages when this prints out?
Budget, yes, it's the,
Okay,
Yeah, just make sure those headers print on the top of every page.
and as of last year, we started including the percentages, so those are included as well.
Good carry.
okay. And we called it contingency appropriation. Is that what we did? Because we were saying contingency budget. And so as long as it says contingency appropriation.
Should we change that in motion B?
We
Cool.
should, if this is the title, if it's being called contingency appropriation and attachment A. it's gonna be the
Easier to
same
change cell E from appropriation to budget just in this one place, right?
Well, the other title is approved appropriation, and this is contingency appropriation. I like the consistency there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just make that change in the first line of motion B. Fifth word. I don't think it's, and then
It's
it's
also,
also
it's
down
also in the fourth line. Kevin.
line. Yeah.
I like the word appropriation.
I think viewers at home will see all the work that goes into crafting these warrant
Yeah, I
articles.
mean, this has been, I'm sure, some captivating viewing for our audience
You mean-
who's stuck in as long as they have.
You mean this isn't normal? This is my first time on the board. This isn't normal?
Oh no, it's normal, but a lot of it's done behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, this is normal. It's just not usually a day before we go to print. That's
Hey,
the
we
first
got 2
little-
days. Day
little
and a
hair.
half.
Yeah. Do we need to approve attachment A, or is that just assumed in what we've already approved?
Don't know if we voted in the past.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's just an attachment. I don't think we've approved that in the past, have we?
I don't think it's referenced, so it is a binding in that sense, right? So I would probably suggest if
It is referenced as, you know, as shown in attachment A. So maybe if we approved that, we approved the attachment A. I don't know.
I mean, if the board would like to take a vote.
I mean, I was going to say,
well-
we voted on any number of things in the past that we weren't sure we needed to vote on. It's always safer to vote than not.
As a CYA, yeah.
Yeah. So would you like to make a motion, Ms. Bermudez?
Motion to approve attachment A as presented.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
And Ms. Bermudez.
Aye.
I am an aye. It is approved in the case that we had to approve.
Kevin, could you send out just, you know, with all those changes?
Yes.
That we talked about, so we can just do a last eyeball check.
And I welcome any final minor modifications if there's something in that we were doing it.
Credit card. I used it over at the gas
I
station.
heard some emphasis on minor.
It's not in my wallet now.
Che is still unmuted and he's got some wallet problems.
There
So,
we go.
I've done much worse, Jay.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. All right. Is there anything more? Well, then I will just say I'm going to thank everybody. I'm going to thank ourselves, first of all, for the work that we have done. I think we have been averaging 2 meetings a week for like 3 months at this point, none of them particularly short. So thank all of us, Kevin Hartunian, Catherine Gabriel, Lauren and Matt, thank you all very much. To all the people who have been coming to our meetings, particularly these past couple of weeks, I will both thank you and apologize to you for them being as non-exciting as they are, but we would welcome this level of interest in what we do as often as you'd like to come round. I think that the more informed the people of Topsfield are, not just about our schools, but about everything that we're doing and trying to do in town, would be good for us and good for you and good for everyone in the town. So feel free. Our meetings are posted on the Town of Topsfield website. We do an entire year of a schedule at a time. So you can go ahead and put it in your calendar if you want to plan for a meeting in the middle of July or August, have at it. We're always happy to talk to you at those times. Obviously, the FinCom and the school committee have been doing their work, as well as all the other people who are involved in doing this. It has not been easy, but I think we're at the end of the road. So I have that to say. Does anyone else have anything else to say before we get that one last motion?
I think you summed it up nicely, Marshall.
I agree, and I'd like to second the thanking Lauren and Matt for being here and putting up with us.
And for getting that home rule petition and all the zoning done so quickly. I was shocked at Matt's understanding of this vast array of information that we threw at him.
All right, with that, I will take that one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. I think I just seconded. I'm allowed
You
to
did.
do that. So
You
there
are.
you
You
go.
are.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Jackson,
All right.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Bermudez,
Right.
and I am an aye. We are adjourned.